Hey guys, I've been doing lots of different stuff with authentication lately, and I'm very new to the subject. And I've been trying to figure out where the best place to store a JWT token is on the client side. And the two main options I see is in local storage or in cookies. And I kind of want to just talk about what I think of each one at the moment and why I'm kind of leaning towards doing local storage. So from what I've learned, I believe local storage, one of the disadvantages of it is it's vulnerable to this attack called cross-site scripting. Whereas cookies is vulnerable to something called cross-site request forgery. And from what it sounds like, you kind of want to pick whichever one you want to protect against. So if for my web application, it's easier to protect against cross-site scripting, I would want to store it in local storage. If it was easier for me to protect against this vulnerability, I would do it in cookies. And so let's just go through what each one of these is real quick, and then this is a really good site too, by the way, called OWASP, that I just read through both of these vulnerabilities. They have a nice page on them that kind of explain how it works and how you can kind of get around it or not be vulnerable to it. So I thought this was some good examples here. Basically what's happening is the user is able to inject JavaScript into your website and they can do stuff with it. So for example, this is the particular one that would be dangerous to us, where on air, basically what happens is they alert and they will basically take your cookie. Now this, of course, I said this was a vulnerability to local storage, but it's also vulnerable to cookies. And that's if your cookie is not HTTP only. If your cookie is HTTP only, that is when this problem comes up and you're protected against this if you have an HTTP only cookie. But if you have a regular cookie, you're vulnerable to this too. But this could be document.localstorage, right? They could be alerting to local storage. But the idea is someone can grab local storage and just send the data to their site. So for example, in this image tag here, they could send, as the source, they could send some JavaScript, and they could grab the document.cookie or the document.localstorage and get the token and basically send it to themselves. So because they have access to local storage, any JavaScript does, that's if you have some malicious JavaScript on your website. Maybe you have an ad banner somewhere. Maybe you're using a bad library that uses some bad JavaScript and it has access and it injects this stuff. Or a user can actually add this as well. So that's kind of the problem with local storage is users can actually get access to, not users, but JavaScript has access to it. And so they can get the local storage token and then send it to a malicious website. And that malicious website now is your token and has access and can do stuff as your account, which is not good. So to kind of defend against this, what you can do is, I don't know if I think they have a nice little page here. I saw the prevention cheat sheet that I really liked. They had a bunch of different ways to do it. But the biggest thing is to basically, if you get user input, you should escape it. So the problem is when you take some user's input and then put in your website, the user can put JavaScript tags and that can do bad things with that. So that's kind of the big problem with local storage, and you want to protect against that. So I recommend taking a look at this if you're using local storage. Look at all these different things that you can do to basically protect yourself from this. Now, cross-site forgery, request forgery is slightly different. This one's actually kind of interesting. I found this very interesting exploit where basically because your cookies are sent on every request you make, the attacker takes advantage of that. So for example, they could send you an email, and I specifically like this one. This one's really neat. And even if you open an email and you don't click anything, they could have an image tag in that email, and it could send the source. Let's say you were logged in at bank.com, and they just have this source tag. This will actually make this request for you, and because your cookies are sent along with it, it'll authenticate automatically for you, and then Marie will send, what is this, $100,000, and you'll send Marie $100,000 when you just opened an email. So that's really dangerous. So there's ways to protect against this as well. I think in general, this one's XSS is a little bit easier to defend against, and because if you're not putting in, if you use trusted libraries, you're not doing ads or that sort of thing, and you are escaping data like they suggest here, it's pretty easy to protect against this one. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards using local storage, because I think it's in general easier to protect against this than it is to protect against this. But again, they have more information on this, on how to protect against it as well. So I highly recommend you looking at both of these when you're trying to make the decision of whether to pick local storage or cookies when storing a JWT token or any type of authentication mechanism. I really like these two sites. I'll put in the link in the description below to come check them out, and you can make a decision for yourself. So that's kind of where my head's at with storing stuff in local storage and cookies. I could change my mind later and do different stuff, but at the moment I'm leaning towards local storage, just storing the token there. And it's one of those things where there's not a perfect solution. Everything has its own vulnerabilities, and you kind of have to just pick per application basis what's best. So I can't say overall local storage is always better, but that's what I would lean towards when starting an application, and maybe I would switch depending on some factors. So thank you guys for watching. That's it for this video.